Hey guys, welcome to another episode here at bringspark.com. Today I've got a guest with me who is a best-selling author not just once but twice on two different continents. He's navigated the world of becoming a best-selling author twice, and he's worked with over 100 authors from around the world to help them achieve their dreams of writing and publishing a book. And his job is somewhere in between publishing and promoting. And today we're going to explore what that means and how you can start to develop your own book, or maybe grab that book that you've had lying around that you wanted to finish, how you should finish it in the best way possible, what you can do to make sure it has a great launch, and how you can leverage that into becoming a business development tool for you in the future. There's a lot of interesting stuff to be said about this, and just from the stuff that I know about our guest, he knows a lot about it. I'm curious myself because, as you might know, I'm an author and I can't wait to dive into this stuff. So let's turn it over to our guest. Jesse, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, TJ, and appreciate you bringing me on here. And, where should we begin to dive in here?
Yeah, that's a good question because there's a lot to be said, I'm sure. And I'm sure you could talk about this for hours or maybe even days. But before we get into the content of it, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. Like, what was your journey? How did you end up becoming a best-selling author, and how did you end up doing what you do today?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable place to start. My background is I've pretty much always been an entrepreneur my whole adult life. I've never really had a normal job. And so that sets the context for, my journey in a nutshell was at age 20, 21. I was in a rock band. I played electric guitar. We lived in Nashville. And my first actual business was starting a record label in order to basically allow us to have the creative freedom and control of our music career. And so my first introduction to business was through my passion of music and wanting to realize a goal of touring the country and having music on MTV and on the radio. And through lots of trial and errors, we did achieve that. Got to tour the US twice, had our music on hundreds of radio stations, 9 songs on MTV with our band that was called Krieger. And even though it was sort of before the modern internet era, this is 2004 and 5, our music's actually still out there. You can find the music videos and everything if you just search for it.
That's very
So
cool.
from there, even in the middle of that, I realized, or I knew that I couldn't see myself doing this at age 40. And so even though the only thing I ever really cared about was music, when I finally started to hit from a career perspective, I realized that it wasn't what I always wanted to do. So it was this strange opening where I then began exploring all these other interests, which led me down starting a renewable energy focused company and later a promotional products business that manufactured in China and had a 4-hour work week style setup, and lots of things in between, lots of traveling, always placing a premium on adventurousness in life. And all that sort of came together as I was getting ready to turn 30. I was like, I should really write a book because I do have a process to, at that point, founding or co-founding like 5 businesses and having sold 2 of them. I was like, I'm going to put down my process. And that began what led to my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, which is a collection of stories and strategies as well as some real like step-by-step frameworks for people to get clear on an idea, research it, build the online infrastructure and how to manage it and scale it from anywhere in the world. And so, that sort of brings us up to the modern time. My experience by having my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, was one where it opened up a whole new set of opportunities to do training and do coaching work and create online programs and do VIP days with clients, all focused on the same ideas in the book, how to realize this dream of becoming a lifestyle entrepreneur. So I had the experience of having a book become a foundation for a broader business and brand. And to bring you up to the present moment, my company, Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, we now work with authors to, yes, complete and publish and promote their books, but always to look at it as how can this build their business and brand. So looking at it holistically, and that's our approach to publishing, which not too many people are doing. So I feel excited in this area of focus.
That's very cool. And I've worked with a few publishers myself, and my experience is they'll let you know if they like your book or not, and they might tell you, change this and change that, and then they'll put it out on the market, and then they're just done. That's their job, and they're not really doing anything more unless you happen to become a bestseller, in which case they'll actually follow up more.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you guys actually sit down and you develop a strategy, not just for developing the book, but actually for developing a following and making sure that it becomes a bestseller, and then taking it even further by helping the author establish a business around whatever the book is about. Is that a concise?
Yeah, pretty much. You nailed it. I mean, I've worked with two traditional publishers for my own book. I didn't self-publish Lifestyle Entrepreneur. I worked with two different publishers for that. So I've seen the ins and outs, like it sounds like you have as well, and really got to understand, where publishers' strengths are and where their weaknesses are. So the strengths are in the distribution and just having the reach to get books in stores and so forth. But the weaknesses are publishers are not your marketing team. They don't exist to promote your book, which is a common misconception. And so I said, I want to totally invert this model. And when we work with somebody, our signature package is this done-for-you bestseller book launch. So I know how to get authors, at least on Amazon, to move hundreds, if not thousands of units during a launch. And that achieves the goal of becoming a best-selling author in a category. And it paves the way for them to leverage that in business development.
That's very cool. So let's start looking at that and giving our viewers who might have a book or an idea for a book. Let's start at the beginning. What should these people do? What should we do if we have an idea for a book or even a rough draft of a book to make sure that it's a best-selling worthy book? What are the main ingredients that needs to be in place?
Well, if you're at the stage where you have an idea or the general content, the topics you want to write about, I always recommend people think of a couple of things. One is, what's a content framework? What's an organizing principle you can use to structure the content of your book? So when I say a content framework, I mean, I can show you some examples actually, but like I've got in my book this framework called the vision map process, right? And vision map is an acronym for mission, action plan, and product. And so you can structure at least some of the content of the book into sections: vision, mission, actions, product. And or you can take a separate approach. Like here's another book we published called Launch Your Business. The subtitle is the 5-step solution to do what you love, quit your job, and have the freedom to travel and live life on your own terms. That's an example of another type of framework, which is a multi-step process. So in this case, the 5-step solution to do X, right? Or in my case, like the vision map, using a word or using an acronym as the overarching outline for the book. So if you start from that point, then it's much easier to say, okay, well, let's go with, vision map. What are the 3 or 4 things I should say on vision, right? How to create the end goal that you want to achieve, how to, think big and boldly, and how to, really just get into the whole broad vision of what you want to accomplish with your business and lifestyle. And then you think about what are the 3 things I want to say about mission, and then action plan and product. Before you know it, you've got 15 or 18 potential chapters, and it becomes pretty clear when you sit down to write the actual content, or there's other ways to do it through interviewing and recording and transcribing, then you're already halfway there. And so I find a lot of people think that's more, well, certainly easier than sitting down and looking at a blank sheet of paper and being like, okay, I was born in 1981 in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I get the most from people who want to know about writing, or my experience with being an author is, how can I sit down and actually create a book? Because it seems like an overwhelming task, and it's just, and I hadn't really thought about those different kinds of structures, but as you were talking, I realized that that's exactly what I do. So my first book was actually a 7-step process, and every chapter kind of wrote itself because I had that outline of it. Yeah. So what you, excuse me, what you're saying is, if you have an idea, then create a structure before you even start writing. Decide what the structure of the book should be.
I mean, these are guidelines, and what I find is by having 2 or 3 alternatives for any aspect of the publishing process, people can either latch onto the one that sounds best to them, or it becomes totally clear what you should do. So sometimes when I explain content frameworks, people are like, oh my God, I know exactly what I'm going to do, right?
Right.
Or you talk about a multi-step process. Or you can talk about a story arc, right? If it's not just a how-to book, then you want to think in more of a thematic sense, almost like a movie where there's a opening scenes and then the story develops and then you have the big turning point and so forth. So there's a lot of ways to envision that. But yeah, I mean, it certainly helps to get some level of clarity on the structure before you start the actual writing.
Right. Now,
And actually, the extent to which you're clear on the structure makes the writing not very difficult at all. It's almost like, oh, okay, I'll actually put the words down now. But once you've organized it all in place, then it's for me at least, it's pretty easy to be like, well, I'll write out 3 pages on this specific point, you know?
Right. I have the exact same experience. To me, it feels like filling in the blanks. When I know what the topic of the chapter is supposed to be, and obviously I have to know the actual content in my head. But so I do the same thing. I kind of make a structure with the chapters that I know I'm going to need and that I want in there, and then I start filling in the blanks between the chapters, which ends up being the book itself.
Yeah, so I think the other piece is once you have the outline or the framework, then think of a chapter format. And by that I mean, like in my book and in others that I like to publish, you know, the chapter opens with a story or it drops you into the action. Gives you an example of showing you the end result of what you're actually writing about. So in my book, I featured 6 other lifestyle entrepreneurs, and in each one of those features, it's like a narrative story that brings you right into their life and shows you what it's actually like. And then they also share, you know, on how they got there and how they think about their business. And so once you have this format for a chapter, then it's even easier to sit down and say, okay, well, what's a story that illustrates this point? And then let's do a couple pages on the actual content of teaching or training, and then maybe some action steps and, you know, takeaways. And then you've got a container for each chapter that you can just write out or create.
Right.
So that's streamlining the book creation process in my mind.
I have a feeling that that's something that a lot of people want to know about, because it seems to me the number one problem for people who want to write books is actually finishing writing the book, because it's hard and it's you know, it's a lot of work, but especially if you don't know where to begin or how to actually create the content that you want. And I'm not talking about the advice or whatever. I'm talking about actually writing the words on the page.
Of course. But I smiled because for many aspiring authors, yes, that is the big goal. The top of the mountain is I'm going to finish my book. But where I become very valuable, I don't really do a lot of teaching and training on how to write a book. I can talk about it and I can probably help a lot of people. But when somebody's getting close to finishing the book and then they realize, holy cow, there's a lot more to do besides just finishing writing a couple hundred pages. You think about the positioning, branding, how to actually market a launch, how to get promotional partners, how to set up the categories so that you get charting in the right area, let alone how to sell books and then how to use your book as a business development tool. I love meeting authors at that point where they're partially done with a book or they've self-published a book and were totally disappointed, and saying, here, let's do it the right way and have it be additive to your overall business or career.
And that's actually probably the most crucial part of having a book is what you're talking about, because you can write it out, but if no one's going to read it, then you basically just spent a whole lot of time and energy on something that wasn't worth anything to you.
Yeah, it's tragic that I think there's statistics like this in every industry, but I think 80% plus of books, people don't read more than the first chapter.
Right.
And that's, of course, if you take one step back, if you have an ugly cover design or you don't even know how to do marketing and book marketing, then most people won't see anything other than the cover.
Right,
so
exactly.
You can get into the actual content. So yeah, it's a big issue, but the publishing industry is in a state of change, and for people that are entrepreneurial and willing to put in, the hustle, there's a lot of opportunity here right now too.
So let's talk about that. For the people who have that rough draft or maybe even a finished product right now and they want to make sure that it gets the received well and that a lot of people see it and they make the best-selling list or whatever, what are the best advice you can give to these people? Something practical that they can start doing and that can help them create a following or just get them a lot of sales.
Yeah, well, let's start with, from the point where you're just about done with your book to the actual launch day. Here's sort of the steps to take is, when you're maybe 90% done with the book, bring in an editor, a proofreader, somebody else who you're getting outside eyes on the book. One, because there's going to be hundreds of spelling errors and typos. That's without a doubt. But two, you've probably lost perspective with how all the pieces tie together and how the book flows. So you want to get somebody to go through it and either give you just typos and corrections, but probably constructive feedback. And you can find somebody like that. I use elance.com to find editors and proofreaders. For only a few $100, you can get some valuable perspective on your book as a whole. Then you want to do the cover design. And for that, I love using 99 Designs to do a cover design contest and see lots of different designs come in and ultimately pick. I mean, out of all of these books here, we've done all of these covers from 99 Designs contests. Actually, that one was done by a different designer. But all these other ones, and I think they look pretty sharp, were all the result of doing design contests. So now you've got an edited manuscript, you've got a cover design, then you want to do what's called interior layout and formatting, right? So every page of a book, there's a decision being made. So on this page, right, I had to choose a quote, and then the quote has a different layout, and some text is bold, and then there's sub-headlines in between the paragraphs. That stuff doesn't happen on its own. That's called the interior layout process, and probably smart to bring somebody in off of Elance or to do that unless you want to learn how to use InDesign or these other publishing programs. But then you've got a good-looking book that's proofread, great cover, interior layout is done. Now you've got a finished product. Right?
Because the truth is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the truth is that it's not all about content. It actually has to look good from the outside to the inside, and looks is important in a process like this. Is that right?
I totally agree. And it's a way to differentiate yourself too. There's enough people putting out, crappy Kindle books that's just a bunch of text with no images, illustrations, takeaways, headlines, whatever. That to me is almost not even a book. But if you want to do a real proper book, then you have to make decisions on how you present the information. And it has a big impact on how the reader can actually absorb the information and use it. So for me, I like to use frameworks like create an illustration or design. Just pulling up here. Like, for example, I've got these frameworks that help you get clear on your identity and the area you want to focus with your business so you can visualize it. And then I wanted each page to have something that stood out. So there's either a little quote in a box or an illustration or something. So you're never just seeing pages and pages of text, because that, even if it's good, I think it can turn people off from really reading it. And it makes your book both skimmable, so you could flip through quickly and get the idea, as well as read it and get the full download. But anyways, that's talking a lot about of the structure of a book. Now you've got a book that's a finished product, and from there to launch is all about your pre-launch marketing campaign. So I'd say either give away sample chapters for your book or some associated resource guide like a worksheet or a blueprint or a checklist, something that lets you build a list. So you put up just a landing page and give away their sample chapters of your book or some free resource. And now you're in communication with these people. You've got their email, they've gotten some taste of value from what you have. And you want to leverage that to build a community as quick as you can. So I like to do a private Facebook group, call it, Lifestyle Entrepreneur Book Launch, the private group, where everybody that's coming in there from opting in the list can now meet you, the author, interact with other people. But most importantly, you've got two ways to communicate with people so that when the actual book launch is taking place, you're not saying, oh my God, who's going to buy a copy or who's going to download a copy? You got to be thinking about that months in advance.
So
So if
for
you're,
a lot of people who are authors, or at least a lot of the people that I know who are authors, they're good with the written word. They're good sitting down and working on their texts and whatnot. But this whole idea of doing marketing and creating lists and creating websites and all that stuff, that might be a little bit intimidating to people who don't have any experience building these communities. So
yeah.
how difficult is it? I'm not talking about the technical stuff because I'm figuring even though people might not know it themselves, they probably have a friend who knows the technical stuff on how to set up a website and all that stuff. I'm talking about how hard is it to actually get people to engage with you? How hard is it to keep, how much work is it to keep up the upkeep of such a group or an email list or stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that to your first point, in terms of authors and marketing, the real mindset shift that you want to have is that marketing is education, right? I think people freak out when they say, oh my God, now I've got to go market my book. Hey, buy my book. Hey, look, I got this book over here. When really marketing is education. And so the marketing stuff that I do is teaching people how to accomplish something, um, giving them a new insight to think about their business or their book a different way. Things like this, right?
So you're
Doing
saying
podcasts
that
and interviews and sharing information is marketing in a sense, but I'm not just here shilling products, right? I'm actually trying to share strategies, and that becomes your best marketing. So whatever it is that you wrote about, whatever it is that your main focus is on, do more of that in public facing venues. So
right.
that could be email, maybe email's not as public, but that's a great communication tool. Facebook groups, running webinars or Google Hangouts, anything that's live and interactive. So if you do a Q&A or a live coaching session, if that's compatible with your business, you just want people to experience you and learn from you. And once they have trusted you and learned from you, then they'll buy from you, and not just your book. They'll buy your other offerings, services, programs.
So if someone, say, wrote a book about, I don't know, working out, which is, health or something like that, then their marketing wouldn't be running around telling people how great their book is online or in person. Their marketing would be more like creating articles or meal plans or stuff like that and sharing it with people. So they're actually just doing more writing, just in smaller formats, and then making it freely available to the people who want
Yeah, yeah.
to know.
There's definitely a difference in how you think about the marketing content for your book, let's say. So if you have a health and fitness book, even that's very broad. But say it's a book on how to lose weight and get a summer body, then you could lead with, you know, some resource guide or like how to lose 10 pounds in the next 2 months without changing your diet,
Right.
something like that. So if you see a headline, how to lose 10 pounds in 2 months without changing your diet, or without exercise, because honestly, diet's probably going to be the thing that you want to change.
Probably.
But that's getting away from the point. So you give them some promise, right? And then you download this thing. It can be just 2 pages saying, here's what you do, cut out gluten, cut out sugar, and eat less carbs. And yeah, in 2 months, you will lose 10 pounds, right? So then you're giving them some little hint. But of course, now that they've got that, you're in communication. Say, by the way, I've got a book that really outlines, the meal plans. It tells you how to choose the right meal plan and exercise for your body type. It tells you the differences between being a guy and a girl. And so basically, you're telling them, hey, here's this little free thing that will help you, but I've got so much more to share. And that's where the book comes in. That's where the programs come in.
Hmm. That's
So
perfect.
no matter what the focus is, health and fitness is not my niche.
No, that
I
was just
can, I
something I
can
pulled out of
see,
thin air to make it
right.
relatable to people, hopefully.
And that's the point, right? I can see, and I want other people to be able to see the progression of where you meet somebody with a promise that meets a pain that they have or a goal they want to achieve, and then just keeps learning with them, training with them, getting to know them, letting them get to know you. And then it becomes much less of a hard sale than it is, oh my God, I really want to do this, and I think you're the person that can help me.
That's
And
perfect.
actually, those make the best clients too. So if you think about it holistically, I want somebody who's like dude, I love your approach to publishing. Your books look great. Thanks for all the free training you put out there. I want to work with you. When somebody tells me, I only want to work with you, I know I've done my job right because I've positioned myself. And this is true for anybody that's watching this. When somebody says, I only want to work with you, it means that you've proven to them that you're credible. You've proven that you can help them get results. You've differentiated yourself from the other people out there. And that can be enough for somebody to know that they want you, instead of saying, oh, well, there's 10 other people out there that do publishing. Which one should I choose? In our line of business, with training, with information, it's not like going to the grocery store and looking at 10 things on a shelf next to each other and saying, well, this one's the cheapest, but this one is 2 times stronger. It's not a decision like that. And so it's really based on the personality and the value that you get from the person, especially when it's online and you don't have the benefit of meeting them and seeing them in the course of normal life.
Right, exactly. And so just to sum up what you're talking about with the marketing here, it's not about learning how to do ads and learning how to write sales copy or anything like that. It's actually about doing more of what you've done in your book. So you keep working on the content, you keep producing content, and you give it away for free to show people what you have to offer, so that you attract the people who want the product that you've actually created.
That is largely true, except I will say that, look, to be totally honest, there is a learning curve to learning ads, to becoming a better copywriter. But I think a lot of people get distracted with those things and miss the larger topic, which is what we've been talking about: how to conceive of marketing, how to conceive of taking people through a journey of learning that has different stops along the way where they can buy from you and engage deeper with you. It's the very, the things like doing Facebook ads or writing good headlines. Like, it is important, and I do recommend people focus on those 2 things because it will make a difference. But just doing that outside of the context of this broader strategy is where people get stuck. That's why people blame technology for a lack of strategy.
Right.
Say, I don't know how to build a web page. Look, you don't need to know code to build a web page these days. There's templates, there's lead pages, there's WordPress. So it's not, the technical is not the hurdle, but it's when you're thinking about what do you say, how are you positioning yourself. I don't know, maybe if this is off topic, but I've really seen that people sit down and get overwhelmed with technology because that's the point where they finally have to think about, what am I actually going to say to the world? And then they freak out because they don't really know and they don't see how it fits into the bigger picture. When I sit down to write headlines or ads, it's like that, so fast, because it's just the final piece. It's the visible touch point for the bigger plan I'm putting into motion. And if you've made a clearly defined promise, like we just came up with, how to lose 10 pounds in 2 months without changing your exercise regimen, well, that's the headline right there. Right. Right? You don't have to do anything else. If you've created a resource guide called How to Lose 10 Pounds in 2 months, then you just say, get my brand new free training, How to Lose 10 Pounds in 2 months without changing your diet. Click to download now. Right. That's all you need on an ad. That's all you need on a landing page. Now, when it gets to something like a sales page or whatever, yeah, there's an art to writing more compelling copy and all that stuff. But even that, I think, is a function of working with some people one-on-one or working with groups. And once you see what people's problems actually are and listen to what they're telling you, seeing the results that they're getting, then it becomes much easier to write what I call a one-to-many story, right? Something that goes on a sales page that thousands of people will see. You don't know all those 1,000 people. But if you've worked with 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 people, then you know what to say so that thousands of people can resonate with it. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. So is there anything else in the pre-launch phase of this that needs to be in place for the sales to actually take off? Because I figure, even if you have a lot of followers, there's got to be something that gets these people to buy in a manner that gets you on the best-selling lists.
Yeah. So there's 2 approaches. If you're doing like a self-publishing approach, then I probably recommend this, which is setting up your book on Amazon so that you can give it away for free for 1, maybe 2 days. And if you're going with the strategy I've been talking about, where your book really leads into the higher priced products and programs, then there should be no conflict to get it into as many people's hands as possible, even if it's free. So then you focus a lot of the promotion around the launch day when everybody can get a free copy of your book for one day only. That's one approach, because when you focus a lot of that, then you're getting downloads and you'll get onto the bestseller charts, although the free charts. So that gets you visibility, and it gets you in front of a lot of new people, because Amazon will recommend your book. Hey, you bought this one, you're going to love this one, right? We all get those emails, we all see suggested items and so forth. That's how you become a suggested book within their system, is drive a lot of downloads in a short amount of time. But now that one day's over, so you switch your book back, now it's got a price tag on it. So then now you switch over to the paid charts. So you want to have a two-stage marketing where first you give it away for free for 1 or 2 days, you get that pop, that visibility, and then continue on and maybe add some bonus. Hey, if you get my book, I'll give you this free training. Now, I mean, every time I do a launch on the thank you page, I say, great, I can't wait to share whatever it is I just promised you. And by the way, here's a one-time only offer. If you buy a copy of Lifestyle Entrepreneur and forward me the receipt, I'll give you this 6-part audio training I created, which normally sells for $197. And so just stacking the value is a way to drive book sales. And the trick there, if everybody caught that, I'm saying once your book is available and for sale at full price, you may not even want to be just like, hey, go get my book, but say, if you get my book, or if you get my book and leave a review, I'll give you XYZ. And the XYZ should be something that doesn't cost you money and is not physical. So if I've got a 6-part audio training, somebody can send me an email, my assistant will respond with a great email and the download links and asking them about some next step, right? So here's this free bonus you asked for. So by the way, what idea are you thinking about for your business? You know, if you leave a review on Amazon, Jesse will be happy to jump on a 15-minute call and drill down on your specific idea. So that's my progression to somebody sees me online, gets something free, says, oh, hey, get my book and get something else valuable, gets my book, now I'm driving book sales, gets in touch with me and says, hey, I bought your book, give them free training, and then ask what they're actually focusing on. If I get on the phone with somebody after everything I just described, do you think they're a pre-qualified potential client?
Absolutely. They've already tried to qualify into what you're trying to sell.
Yeah, so selling almost becomes not the right word, because if I'm talking to them and they're like, here's my idea, and I'm like, great, I can totally see how in 3 months you could build that business and I can show you how. Then it's just a question of, is it the right fit, and do they have the budget, and are they willing to commit to taking action? If they are, I can help them. And we made a sale that brings in a lot more money than selling a book.
Right.
So that's where
how you
book
leverage
fits in. Yes, that's where the book fits in to the broader, the bigger picture.
Right, exactly. So for those who are self-publishing and they're publishing something that they actually want to work with people on, they want to do trainings or coaching or consultant work or whatever it is, then this is more or less a natural progression in having people invest first in your, say free articles on your website or on Facebook groups and your email list, leveraging them from there to getting the book, whether it's that free 24 hours or later on actually paying for it and getting a bonus. You're leveraging that one more step, saying, hey, do this for me, I'll give you more free stuff. And then you keep doing that until you hit that point where you're actually in direct communication with the clients, and you can do, recruit or whatever you want to call it, to start collaborating with them on whatever your real business is.
That's right. That's all true. And I mean, the specifics get into the details of what do you offer somebody, where do you put it in the time frame of communication, and really what problems are you helping them solve, and then you're giving them some resource, whether it's a book, a training, a coaching call, and then after they've solved that problem or gotten a result, what's the next question that they have? And if you can visualize that progression, then you can build a great business, help a lot of people, and make a lot of money. Because, for example, going back to our health example, right, in an area that I don't even focus on, right? If somebody's thinking, man, I want to lose my belly and get ready for summer, they say how to lose 10 pounds in 2 months, and you're running this ad in March, right? So April, May, you've lost 10 pounds. Now it's June and it's summer, right? So then you give them this resource, but what they really want is, a sustainable diet and workout plan that they can stick to. So then that becomes the book. And then what they really need is accountability and somebody to tell them that they're doing it right or what to do better. So that becomes coaching. And then maybe what else they want is a community of people so they can go on this journey together. That's an online program and a private Facebook group.
Right.
All these things can be fit into any industry because you're thinking about what do they really need next or what do they really want, but they're not telling me yet. And sometimes they may not even know, right? If somebody's asking me, well, how do I structure the content for my book? I know they're at a different stage than somebody that's like, hey, I've self-published 2 books and I sold like 100 copies of each. What am I doing wrong? Now they're a few steps down and I'm having a different conversation with them than talking about content frameworks.
Right. Exactly.
But I see it all as a continuum, as a spectrum.
That makes sense. Now, you mentioned that there were 2 different scenarios, and one was the self-publishers that you just talked about. What's the other way to do this?
Well, that's if you're a published author, or if you're working with a publisher. Well, other than myself, because we do marketing. But if you have a publishing deal, and say you just signed your publishing deal, or you're really excited about it, you're playing a different game because now you only get 10% of the book sales. So is your motivation high to actually sell books? Yes, no, maybe. So you want to move a lot of books, but you have to take a different approach that involves probably more geographically specific promotion. So if you have a book that's released across the country, you need to make sure that you're on radio or doing local ads, or maybe you're speaking or doing events. You actually have to get out and hustle more to sell books that are in stores than the Amazon print-on-demand audiobook, which people can get from anywhere, and it doesn't really matter. So if you're trying to chart on Wall Street Journal, New York Times, it's playing a totally different game. It's probably beyond the scope of this interview, but I can tell you that it's a different strategy than just doing free resource guide to buy my book and get a bonus. Those things still work, but you have to do much more in addition to the online promotions, from my experience. Like when my book first came out in Southeast Asia, my publisher did do some marketing and got me speaking slots at book fairs in major cities around Malaysia and Singapore. So I had committed for them to publish my book. Now, as a first-time author then, I flew over there and went on a tour, basically. So when I'm speaking at book fairs, shaking people's hands, signing their books, that built the momentum where I then got more media coverage, more opportunities to speak, and then that ball starts rolling until we hit #2 business bestseller in the whole country of Malaysia from doing something that was more involved than just an online marketing campaign.
Right. So maybe for the published authors, they need to firstly, hopefully, be able to engage their own publisher in actually sending out, PR to media, trying to help you get that.
Don't rely on the publisher. Just do it yourself.
Right.
I mean, you'll spend a lot of energy trying to get your publisher to do something, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if you instead just take the time and create 5 press releases and get a PR web account and maybe hire an assistant or someone to help you with the distribution, but being the person primarily in charge of your marketing is always going to be to your benefit.
Right.
And if you do start to sell a lot of books, like you mentioned earlier, yes, your publisher will notice and they will love you.
Right.
And maybe they'll do some more marketing.
Yeah, maybe, if you're lucky. So for the published authors, get out there, do the groundwork, hustle, and see if you can get speaking engagement, see if you can get media attention. Just bring as much focus on your book, because you don't have the freedom to do the 24-hour free book or any of that stuff. You actually have to move it off the physical shelves in the stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to
And
make sense.
just to make it not overwhelming, think of what are one or two media channels that you feel most comfortable with. So there's a few different types. There's video. Right now we're doing a video media. There's podcasts and radio, which is audio. There's blogs, newspaper articles, online publications, that's print. So what's your best format? I feel really comfortable and I love doing live recorded video conversations type of media. Even though I'm a writer and I work with writers, I actually really don't like sitting and writing guest articles or doing things like that. I'm much better interacting with people. So this is one of my main channels. I do tons of podcasts, tons of online virtual summits, where there's multiple speakers on a topic. Those are my two main channels. So think about what are your best ones that will leverage your strengths. Is it video, audio, or text-based? And then just pick one or two and hammer those. Because if you try and do everything, you'll just get overwhelmed and then frustrated and then stop taking action.
That makes perfect sense. All right, we're going to start rounding off real soon, but before we do, is there anything more that, do you have any last advice for people out there, whether they're aspiring authors or actually finished writing and they just want to know how to move more product? What can you what can you leave them with?
Well, sure. I mean, one, thanks, TJ, for having me on. I think this is a pretty valuable, pretty fun discussion, and hopefully there's some value in there for the listeners.
I'm sure there is.
And closing thoughts. I mean, look, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. And I can tell you that if you're thinking about doing a book or you've been dreaming about creating a book and getting it out there, then you're meant to do it. Simple as that. You don't need anybody else to evaluate whether it's a good idea or not. If you feel compelled to do it, you were meant to do it. So you need to start taking action. And once you're starting to take action, there's lots of resources like what TJ has brought into you here, and I have some free resources I'll give you for the show notes that can help you get started. And if you've completed a book, or if you're wondering how to sell more books and get out there, then I encourage you to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Where do you want to go with this? What's the ultimate outcome you want your clients, your readers to have? And then from that point, reverse engineer the next one or two offerings that you create. And that will help the book lead into your business and give you a new motivation to promote your book because it's not an end in and of itself.
That sounds great. I wish I had this conversations with you a few years ago before I published my first book, because I'm sure it would have sold even better than it did. So where should people go to see more of your stuff?
Sure. Well, if you're interested in this whole from how to set up the content for your book to cover design, layout, I created a 4-part video training series that has some really great downloadable resources. Just go to bestsellerthisyear.com and you can have all of that for free. If you're interested in what we're doing publishing wise, lifestyleentrepreneurspress.com is the main site where you can see all the books we published, the different publishing packages and services we offer. And if you just want to know more about me, just go to jessekrieger.com or do a search for Lifestyle Entrepreneur.
Perfect. And all the links that Jesse just said, they're right below the video that you're watching right now, so go check it out, guys. Awesome. All right, Jesse, thank you very much for being here. I really had fun, and I can't wait to start promoting my next book now because it's in the works and it should be out in a few months, so this should be interesting. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, TJ, and talk to you more about your book soon.
I would love to. All right.
Thanks, everybody. Take
Bye.
care.